Uh, wow, this is exciting. We're 1 minute into the call and we already have almost 20 people on. Florian, you're a popular guy. This is a good sign. So I think that we can go ahead and start. I'll invite a couple of people to introduce themselves before we start the main program, just because I think that we're probably going to have, a few more people join us in the next couple minutes. Just to give people an appreciation for who's on the call. Hey, Beto, do you mind introducing yourself real quick? Just tell us who you are and what Forest Trends is in like less than a minute.
Sure. Greetings, everyone. I'm Beto Borges. I'm the Director of Forest Trends Communities and Territorial Governance Program. And Forest Trends is a US-based organization working globally to create incentives, economic incentives for conservation. And the program that I run focuses on indigenous peoples and local communities, primarily in Latin America and Amazon in particular. Great to be here. Thank you.
Great. And I'm going to invite one more person to introduce themselves, and we hear from Florian. Yves Les Enfants, would you mind introducing yourself real quick?
Hi, everybody. I'm Yves. I'm working with the IDB Lab, and we are happy to support the challenge that Florian is going to talk about. And also, I'm leading the development of the Leticia platform, basically aiming to connect investor to project and business opportunities in the Amazon. So happy to be here.
And for those who don't know, the IDB stands for the Inter-American Development Bank, and the Leticia platform is the investor project connector developed in association with the Leticia Pact, which is an intergovernmental collaboration of the Amazon nations. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start my MC responsibilities, and then I'll introduce Florian. Hello, everybody. Thank you for the first call since the summit of the Amazon Investor Coalition call and podcast series. We call it Amazon Office Hours. Again, this is a weekly program dedicated to advancing forest-friendly economic development and the rule of law across the Amazon region of South America. We bring together governments and investors and philanthropists and figure out how to make it happen. The theory of change is that there's an infinite amount of money available to solve climate and forest issues, and the stumbling block is inadequate investor education and awareness and strategy and collaboration. And so we exist to solve that problem. So this week we are featuring the extraordinary work of 1T.org and the World Economic Forum, and in particular the Amazon Bioeconomy Challenge. And Florian is going to be talking about the program. He and many others on this call participated in the summit that we hosted at the end of May. It was called Amazonia Rising, a global summit on investing in the Amazon. We had about 500, close to 600 people join us over a course of 5 days. We had 45 sessions, some small, some very large. Lots of connections were made. Some money has changed hands. Some people got investors. Some people found co-founders for the organization. Some nonprofits got philanthropic resources. We've created a very important global learning community to figure out how to tackle these issues. And then there was a long break. And I have been moving houses and things like that. There's been some changes in the team, lots and lots of momentum. And so to kick off the call series for the second half of this year, we're starting with the Amazon Bioeconomy Challenge. So with that introduction, Florian, I understand you're going to make a presentation, and I caught a couple of questions for you, and then we'll release you to the audience, who I'm sure will pile on with lots of questions. The microphone is yours.
Thank you, Jonah. Thank you very much. And hello, everybody. It's a real pleasure to be with you. Thank you, Jonah, for the kind invitation. I will indeed do a quick presentation, or maybe rather offer a few words. I won't show any slides tonight. Well, tonight, because hello from Zurich in Switzerland. I hope many of you are in a less rainy place than where I am right now. And maybe just a quick word of introduction. I'm by training a political scientist. I've spent most of the last 10 years helping to set up and handle those public-private initiatives that the World Economic Forum has increasingly developed over the last decade or so, including the Tropical Forest Alliance, the CEO Climate Leaders. Did work also in carbon markets together with South Pole, and now since about 2 years been involved in the setup and now in the running of 1T.org, the Trillion Trees platform at the World Economic Forum. And so yes, I'm really delighted to tell you a little bit more about our bioeconomy, our Amazon Bioeconomy Challenge. The introduction I just gave was also basically to mention that many of you will be much more the experts in everything about the Amazon than I am. I'm a generalist. I'm not an ecologist. I'm not from the region. And so I am not the Amazon expert. Just want to get that straight. But we're setting up platforms and processes to help improve certain changes in the system and really help improve public-private collaboration. That's really what the World Economic Forum is setting itself as its overarching goals. So when we launched 1T.org just 1.5 years ago in Davos, we did it from the get-go with the strong support by President Duque, President of Colombia, who was present at our press launch. And from the beginning, it was quite clear that this initiative, 1T.org, will have a focus on the Amazon. It's a global initiative, though. It's part of our portfolio of activities to help accelerate nature-based solutions. And we essentially, with 1T.org, we do 3 things. And they all come together in our emerging work on the Amazon. And those 3 things are like the mobilization of the private sector, where we are convening a global corporate alliance that was just made public recently at the launch of the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration. For the moment, about 16 companies making commitments for the conservation and restoration of forests. So really also like beyond their supply chains, and it's cross-sectoral from tech companies to food companies and financial sector companies, for example. Small but growing. And then we are convening a number of regional alliances. So we have an existing 1T.org chapter in the US that we are handling together with American Forests. We have our Amazon effort on the way, which I talk more about today. The Sahel and the Great Green Wall is a similar effort to the one that we are driving in the Amazon. And then also India and China are completing our regional portfolio. So, and then the third element, what we do is we have a strong focus on innovation and really also supporting grassroots actors that are driving restoration on the ground. And that goes back to, I think, a promise that we have made when we launched 1T.org, which was about setting this thing up in a way that improves also the connectivity in between the grassroots of the world and the grass tops. The grass tops being those type of stakeholders that the World Economic Forum engages with in a more traditional sense, but arguably to meet some of the most pressing SDG challenges, and maybe in particular the restoration of degraded ecosystems, we have to find ways to better engage grassroots actors in those type of activities that the World Economic Forum is running. And on that note, also when we launched 1T.org, the WEF, together with Salesforce, the UN, Microsoft, LinkedIn, and Deloitte, has unveiled a new platform to help run all kind of SDG challenges. And that platform is called Uplink. It's the World Economic Forum's platform really to help crowdsource SDG innovations and run challenges on an ongoing basis. We've done so since last spring, 2020, and it's been really a great exercise, I would say. And I've seen the World Economic Forum from the inside for a number of years, and I feel like this is really changing the dynamics quite a bit, and it's really refreshing also to see grassroots actors getting more the spotlight, I would say, on that platform. So that maybe brings me to the Amazon Bioeconomy Challenge, which I know we really want to focus on today. And maybe again a little bit about process. As often, right, we operate very often in an informal way at the World Economic Forum, similar, I would say, to this coalition, bringing people together in informal communities. So earlier this spring, we got a number of stakeholders together, including Eve, Jonah, the likes of Carlos Nobre, also the government of Colombia, IPAM, grassroots actors like Preta Terra, investors. So kind of a multi-stakeholder coalition. And we really started with how can we design, we started with the question and asking, like, how can we design a bioeconomy challenge that is credible, socially and ecologically responsible, and is making a meaningful contribution to improving also like some of the pressure points in the system, right? And I think here one of the really interesting conversations that has emerged early on, together with Eve and his colleagues, is kind of the question: how can we set up such a process so that it also feeds some of the existing funds and programs that are looking to support the bioeconomy in the Amazon? So how can we use a platform such as Uplink as a funnel, supported by the World Economic Forum, with all the communications and messaging firepower? And some of you might have seen some of our LinkedIn and Twitter videos that we do and that are highly successful. So how can we use all of that and the expertise of all the great experts in our network to design something that is helping to meet the needs also of those who want to invest and really also want to support grassroots actors? So that has led us actually a bit of Eve, you might laugh now, it was a bit of a sprint that kept us busy during the month of May to co-design this challenge. We've launched it at the launch of the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration on the 4th of June. And we're now having an open submission phase that will last at least until mid of July. And the challenge is looking for startups and scale-ups. So startups, as we define it, as companies that have a proven pilot and some operations and are ready to scale. And those are, I mean, the scale-up are those that have a little bit more experience and, of course, are ready to scale out. And it's really about a number of bioeconomy actors working in agroforestry value chains, in ecotourism, in fisheries, and maybe also models that blend all of those or some of those together in more holistic models. So really like the bioeconomy ecopreneurs, as we like to say. But then also we are looking for companies and startups that are more like working on the enabling environment and helping to meet some of those also like operational needs that eco enterprises working in the Amazon have, so that their efficiency and their proficiency can improve. So really also looking for submissions and participants in the challenge that work more on the enabling environment. And then I guess the question is, what do we do once the submission phase is closed? And here again, I think it's 3 elements that I would like to highlight. Actually, before that, maybe it's, well, I won't count. Let's see how many elements I'm going to highlight. But one thing to say is that, so we do this for the first time now. OneT.org is a 10-year-long initiative. We want to run those challenges on an ongoing, maybe on a yearly basis, maybe actually on an even more ongoing basis. So everything we do, we do it for the first time now, but by repeating it over time, we hope that the impact of the challenge will also, of course, be greater. And so once we have selected the winning cohort members of the challenge, it's really also about providing those actors access to the network and the platform of the World Economic Forum. So that means participation in events, in communities, so really that giving that access. But it's also about providing access to investors and funders. And here I'm delighted, of course, also to share that we are working very closely with Eve and Jonah on that. So that we have set some of the criteria for the challenge that they can also be more easily transferred also to the screening process of the IDB lab and its grant and investment mechanisms. And similarly also, and I think that's also the idea of the conversation today, right? Help connect also with investors and other stakeholders who are interested in supporting those type of bioeconomy ecopreneurs. So access to investors and people with an interest to see more investment flowing. And then it's also tied to each challenge. We then run like a web-specific accelerator programs. So, or maybe just more simply put, cohort programs. So, and I think here we are obviously not an impact hub, and we are not a startup incubator. But we have the network, we have the experts that we want to bring in also to help meet some of the more specific needs that each one of the ecopreneurs or startups that we surface has. And then again, also really it's the storytelling and those videos and blog posts that we produce on those type of bioeconomy ecopreneurs. And I think with each video that we produce, an average gets about 500,000 views. And I think here it's really also about that long-term vision. If we hope that by doing this more on an annual basis, that we can really also lend the brand and the communication of the WEF to put a spotlight on those type of grassroots innovators. And then also, maybe this is the last point for now I'm going to make is, so in addition to all of that, and the challenge work that we are doing and the processes we are building around it, we are also regularly convening like what we call high-level dialogues for financing the bioeconomy in the Amazon, which goes back to what I said initially about President Duque's support for OneT.org. So with the signature of the Leticia Pact, and Eve has mentioned the Leticia platform, which is part of the implementation system to support the Leticia Pact. So as part of all of that, we started convening regular senior level dialogues, bringing together the presidents of the IDB, of OCTO, the vice president of Brazil, and the president of Colombia, together with a number of experts and CEOs of companies, to have that exchange on how can we also work on improving the system to finance credible bioeconomy in the Amazon. So what we are seeking, the opportunity that we see, I think, is really also to bring those pieces closer together. So the higher level convening power by the WEF with those more grassroots focused innovation challenges that we run. So the challenge remains open, and once I'm done, I'm going to share the link in the chat. I think it was also in the invitation that Jonah has shared, but I said it a couple of minutes ago. It's officially open until mid-July, with a little bit of a wiggle room, so we might be able to extend it a little bit. The idea is that then at the end of September, during the UN General Assembly week, when the WEF is holding its yearly Sustainable Development Summit, that we use that platform to announce the winning cohort of the challenge. So maybe let me stop here. Jonah, yeah.
Great, thank you, Florian. So I'm going to come in with one question, and then for those who want to come in with questions, please indicate your interest by, okay, Belaine, you're first up. Please indicate by raising your hand or indicating your interest in the chat. So the first question that I have for you, Florian, is a little bit of a philosophical one, and it's one that I encountered in the process of organizing the Amazon Investor Coalition Summit. And it has to do with sort of perhaps it's a worldview or ideological divide on this question of forest-friendly economic development and indigenous communities. So there's a perception that leaving the forest alone and indigenous communities alone and just protecting them is really the best way to protect the forest. After all, historically, they preserve the forest better than anybody, but that doesn't really tie into this universe of investing. And so how can it? And what is the role of the, or how can, or how should it, or you know, just some thoughts about that. And then what is the responsibility of the global economic machine in restoring, you know, the ecosystem in a way that is an ecological balance? So I guess it's a philosophical question of if you're trying to deal with an ecosystem that needs sustainability, but sustainability is not the pattern of the global capitalist system, how do you square that that fitting a round peg into a square hole? So it's a philosophical thing more than anything else. And then Maria Belen is up, and then Marina. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jonah. Wow, yeah, that's a big question. Let me try and offer an answer. And I know, like, well, many of you on the call will probably have better answer. So I guess now when we talk about the bioeconomy, and I think it's important to recognize that that's not a panacea and it's not the solution for everything. And maybe it shouldn't be, we shouldn't have that lens to all the landscapes and territories in the Amazon, and maybe also elsewhere in the world, right? I mean, that's I guess there is parts of nature that can just be nature, and there should not be an economic angle to it at all. But at the same time, we also have to work with a more and build a more responsible economy, and there are lots of opportunities to do it. And I think that's where we have to push the system really to show like the models that work and how you know, enterprises or activities, economic activities led by local indigenous communities can be recognized as such, built upon and built further, anchored in a really solid understanding also of the needs of the local communities, and maybe starting with that first rather than somewhere further up in the supply chain. But the two have to meet, and I think it's about, well, also a certain worldview and how we develop economic activities in a responsible way. So I think it's absolutely not the solution for everything, and I think in our challenge we recognize that as well. For us as the World Economic Forum, I think we also see, of course, the opportunity to mobilize the private sector for more of those activities and restoration and conservation based value chain development in strong partnership with local communities. I think that's an absolute fundamental aspect of not avoiding the same mistakes of the past that just don't work, as you have mentioned. And then, yes, I mean, the responsibility of the global system, of course, that there is a lot to be improved, and we know that the inertia in the system is such that it takes a long time until suddenly it goes very quickly. And I think here, we have to be humble as well and just recognize that the complexities couldn't be bigger. And I think also a challenge for us is to understand, like, how can we make a meaningful contribution? And I guess I would actually also love to hear some answers from the group to that, recognizing that complexity and the need to really transform entire economic systems. Now, what is a meaningful contribution actually to be made by an actor like the WEF?
Okay, great. Maria Belen Duran, in addition, I would like you to come up next. Please feel free to come on video. When you make your question, please introduce yourself. A lot of people just make questions without giving context, and you're working on some super, super important stuff. Thank you.
Okay, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great. Well, my name is Maria Belén Duran. I work at the World Bank within the Amazon Sustainable Landscape Program, which is a regional program for Peru, Brazil, and Colombia for its first phase. And we're adding Ecuador, Guyana, Suriname, and the 3 other countries for a second phase. And it's a program that is funded by the GEF. I found the presentation very, very interesting, and I would love to hear more. I was looking the links that you, Jonah, sent into the chat. I think it's really interesting. However, I do have some questions, and I'm sorry, there are 4 questions, so I hope you could answer all of them. The first question I had is the challenge funded by the IDB idea of the Bioeconomy Fund that was presented by President Duque some couple months ago? And the second question is, what is the role of mid authorities within each country within the challenge? Like, are, I don't know, technicians from the Ministries of Environment, of Ministries of Agriculture, or the authority that is in charge of the bioeconomy idea of each country, are they going to have a role in it? Are they going to review the proposals? Are they're going to comment on the proposals, or what is the role? The other question I had is, are the 8 countries of the Amazon within available to send proposals to the challenge? I know that the idea is to have other sectors, not the government itself, but are the 8 countries, like including Venezuela, within the challenge? And my last question is, you mentioned the Leticia Pact in your presentation, and how it is going to help the countries accomplish it and implement it. I was wondering, how are you thinking you're going to measure the support that the challenge is given to the implementation of the Leticia Pact? Yeah, so those are my questions.
Excellent, thank you so much. Florian.
Yeah, thank you, Mariah. The last one is a particularly difficult one, so I'm glad I have a little more time to think about my answer. So number one, who's funding the challenge? It's funded by Salesforce. So Salesforce is the donor of OneT.org and also of Uplink. So we have a very strong relationship with them, and it's actually, in the case of OneT.org, it's actually Mark and Lynn Benioff, so in their personal capacity, who gave a grant to OneT.org, and that allows us to hire a team and work on it. To clarify the relationship also with the IDB lab, is that it's not funding the challenge per se. It's about using the challenge as a funnel to identify startups that the IDB might want to actually support. So it's that collaboration to basically meet the needs of both of us. So that's I hope that's the answer to the first question. Your second question about the role of local authorities and experts is an excellent one. We actually were really happy also to receive the support from the Office of the Vice President of Brazil, who shared the challenge with all kind of local development authorities, states, and a number of there were a number of acronyms in that list of organizations that I was not familiar with, but really keen also to make sure that the challenge, which exists in Portuguese and Spanish, by the way, is reaching also those local levels. And then thank you also for asking about how those type of actors contribute to the review process, which is again a collaboration. We invite interested parties. We also look at our own network, but also if any of you here are interested in taking part in this, we are keen to engage experts to help review the proposals reviewed. Only those proposals, of course, that we have pre-vetted as being valid and serious, and gives anybody also the opportunity to learn a little bit more about the type of project sourced. All 8 countries are available, are eligible, of course, to participate, and any project that is locally led and within the granted hard to define boundaries of the Amazon, but projects operating within the Amazon are eligible to participate in the challenge. Now about your last question, I think here, I mean, our impact, the way we measure it, I think it's more from an internal perspective at the World Economic Forum for the time being. It's about making sure that we do increase the participation of really good ecopreneurs, and that we also have that shift in the stakeholder map of the WEF over time. Also, of course, that we help unlock additional investment for those innovators that we surface, and it's like then providing those proof points and having those case studies that show like how things can be done, maybe also differently, and bring those models then also to the decision makers that are involved with the Leticia Pact, for example. But I think really we measure impact more like from our internal perspective from the time being. But then of course it's also it's always difficult, I think, also to then really aggregate, if you have like those smaller project focused activities, to aggregate impact in terms of hectares conserved or restored. I think there are other initiatives about like more systems change initiatives that would lend itself better to those type of impact measures, which is something that we actually also exploring as OneT.org and WEF, how we can, in addition to that more project focused work that we're doing with Uplink, how can we also support those larger system change initiatives and dialogues where I think the impact measurements would look different.
Great. Next up is Marina Campos.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Florian, for this very insightful competition or initiative. It's indeed very much needed in the Amazon and other places around the globe. So I congratulate you and your organization for doing this. My question has to do more with what kind of impact, so it's kind of like a combined question. What kind of impact you're looking for? Because I understand you want to focus on the ecopreneurs, as you said, small startups and scale ups, but are you looking for 15, 50? And the reason I'm asking you this is because this has to do with how much money were we talking about? Because I didn't see, maybe it was an oversight from my side, but I haven't seen anywhere that it says what is the cap of if there's a limit for applying, because that would really make it you think about how you can bring systemic change, or you can just bring like little bits of change, right? So if you could just clarify that, I would be very helpful. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Marina. So in terms of how many people or how many startups can apply, there is no cap. And this is also, we are we're offering a platform for people to connect. And each challenge becomes also like a community. And so once you submitted your solution, you're basically part of that Uplink platform. And what we observe is that the more people participate in the challenge, the more lively then what we call the action groups become. And then of course, if we get, like, to give you an example, last summer we did our first global Trillion Tree Challenge, and we received around 300 submissions, which we were quite happy with. And we eventually then worked with a cohort of 20 startups, and some of them were actually also more more like initiatives than startups. So it had a different focus than this one here. And so with those 20, you know, we ran a 4-month cohort program, which was quite bespoke and lots of like facilitated interactions, and again, like smaller community building and connections with investors and companies. And so that's much more curated. And, you know, I think the lesson learned there is as well that those who make most proactive use of the opportunity given often get the most out of it. And I think here also, I really want to highlight that now we are in a way still piloting what uplink is. So sometimes it's a bit like, you know, handcrafted in a way. And now we actually work with you know, we actually spend quite a lot of time on it. And we hope that over time, this can also become something much more automated, right? No, right now there is, for example, no fund attached to uplink, but maybe this can become something you know, of the future. I mean, I guess now we are very entrepreneurial there ourselves, and you know, if we together with our partners identify that something like this could make sense to help improve the accessibility to appropriate funding for those type of startups, why not? Then I think we could do that. But so yes, we have, you know, let's say a typical cohort, it's about in between 12 to 20 companies, but anybody, there is no cap in terms of how many people can submit their solution. Was there another part of your question that I missed? No, okay.
Great. Okay, up next, Fiona.
Thank you so much. Nice to see you, Jonah, and thank you all for everything you've all done in this summit and this fruition. I have very specific questions for Florian, and I also would like to take a moment to say that Philippe Guerriere and Nayara are visiting also our organization from Brazil. They are here. Her Portuguese is excellent, of course. So I'm glad that there's an inclusion in this project going forwards. But Nayara UC Sampaio Della Bella is a nature rights lawyer out of the indigenous leader team out of the Yepa Mesa Nation. And some of the work that they're really building is, you know, how do we scale the models to support the structure so that we can look at a 5 to 10 year investment line. And then they are part of our team, which I hope it's okay, Jonah, just to make the announcement. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. We did a very long, extensive XPRIZE rainforest application. And again, I'm going to say why I'm excited, Florian, for this next one is that it can be in multiple languages. Ours was all in English, all in sort of very advanced technology words and biodiversity and kingdom. But Act Now, Amazonas Action Alliance is I think the only nonprofit under decarbonize.org that has been chosen as one of the competing teams for XPRIZE Rainforest for 2024. So we're really excited, but equally we're looking at what are the models that we are building now, because the cry that's coming from the Amazon is we want access to clean water, we want our indigenous rights, our biodiversity protection using the Nagoya Protocol. How do we help support models that can be utilized with technology, but how are we doing it for today's needs, especially after the resilience issues of COVID, which are very rampant in the team. Nantar Inga, our head of our ecology team, environmental biologist, she's pushing and making kombucha today. She feels that's her most important special business that she has in Ecuador, that she uses the medicinal herbs and she makes her own kombucha called Amate Kombucha. And today she's not on the call. She said, Fiona, I have to work on gut flora. I need the medicine. The women are growing these herbs. We are using our medicinal value chain. How do we help scale these businesses? So Florian, I ask you, where and at each level, what aspect can we, I'm a nonprofit sort of US but also our team is based in Ecuador, Panama, and Brazil, as well as we have partners in Peru. And we even have the Maori team in the indigenous communities in New Zealand. And most of them are women scientists or women leaders and indigenous wisdom peoples. So how do they collaborate with you to make this work? Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona. I'm glad you asked. So we actually also work with the X Prize Rainforest, and we've had exactly that conversation with Peter from the X Prize Foundation, and now we want to find out exactly that. How can we also cross-pollinate this and upcoming uplink challenges with the teams competing under the X Prize Rainforest? I think there is, I guess the modalities TBD, but there is, I think, a shared willingness to have that exchange and maybe that dialogue and see, like, what type of, might there be a team competing in the X Prize that might benefit from an additional set of expertise that somebody else that we surfaced would have and could bring into that team, and vice versa. So I think I couldn't now specifically give you an answer about your specific team, but maybe we can have a follow-up conversation on that. But generically, I think this is exactly the type of connecting the dots or joining up dots that we are very interested in facilitating. Does that help? I know this is not a great answer, but I think maybe we can have a follow-up conversation, Fiona.
Thank you. And it is, you have to laugh. I didn't realize that getting into a challenge would also limit the capacity for myself and more of my beautiful friends who have dedicated a long term to the rainforest and the conservation and are living and breathing there, and even for my own small seed investments in forests and conservation models in Panama and in other countries. So I agree, but let's not leave contracts or I'm very much open to collaboration. That's one of the reasons that as a research institute, Decarbonized, we've really tried to open it up. We're not after the prize, we're after the collaboration of having us work all together. And I really want to respect that. And Jonah's deep work with the Amazon Investor Coalition. So thank you all. Yes.
Great. Christina, I see your hand is raised. You're up next.
Hi everyone. This is super exciting. I've actually gone on Friday. I went in and I looked at the whole website, how you submit ideas, proposals, super exciting. And somebody mentioned Venezuela. Yes, we're an Amazonian country as well, but obviously difficult to work there. But we are working there. So I head up a 501c3, and my question is whether a 501c3 could submit potentially, more than one proposal to this challenge. And these are, small startups and more than startups in Venezuela and Amazonia.
I would say absolutely, but now being Swiss and not familiar with some of the probably non-profit legal terminologies that you just mentioned, is that just the legal tax name for a non-profit?
Yes, correct. It's an American non-profit, exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, in principle, look, we are definitely more interested in the for-profits, but we also realize that there's a big gray zone, and many startups at the beginning that have the potential to become for-profits absolutely rely on grants, of course, at the beginning. That's the case for everybody, and even if it's so the short answer is yes, and I think it's also about to the earlier point, who ends up in the cohort is but one part of the challenge. And what I should also say is filling in the initial form is not that time intensive. So I think it probably takes about an hour or so. I've learned from others. Yeah. So yes, please. And we are also, absolutely interested in receiving submissions from the regions and geographies that are also more difficult to work in. So we're not shying away from that. Yeah.
Great. I would like to invite someone from Convergence to introduce yourself and talk about your organization and your interest in collaborating with the Amazon. Matthias, I think you posted.
Yeah, thank you, Jonah. I was just gonna note how I think this is a great initiative, and I'm noting some similarities in just some of the early stage design funding, funding out there to support Amazonian and other initiatives. So just by way of background, Convergence is the global network for blended finance. And we run design funding programs where we manage grants on behalf of third parties and provide early stage grant funding to those who are developing innovative blended finance vehicles. And we are increasingly focused on natural capital, nature-based solutions. Previously, we had a window that was globally focused. Currently, we're a little bit focused on Asia Pacific, but are very keen to expand to the Amazon, Latin America generally. And I just think that there's lots of opportunity for those of us in the world who are interested in this space to collaborate, whether that means, sharing pipeline, sharing, technical assistance services. I think there's more to be explored in the way of collaboration here. And so very glad to be a part of this conversation and keen to follow up. I'll leave it there for now, but thank you, Florian. Thank you, Jonah.
Great. And I've got a question that is posted by Bruno Santana from Brazil. His microphone is not working, so I'm going to read his question. He works with ICLEI South America, which is a global association of local governments working towards sustainability. Bruno says, we have 2 projects that we would like to try in the region. One, which is already focused in the Amazon region, where we try to bring sustainable agenda to local governments, and another, which I think is the one that fits better with this opportunity, where we seek to encourage the generation of technology applied to the demands and challenges of cities, with a focus on sustainable urban development by supporting startups active in the areas of innovation and sustainability for local public management. Is an organization such as ours able to be part of this challenge, or are you looking for local entrepreneurs only? Didn't find much information, unfortunately. Florian?
Thank you, Jonah, and thank you, Bruno, for the question. So I think, yeah, an organization like ICLEI for this challenge might probably not be the usual one, but nevertheless, I mean, your work sounds, particularly if it's cities in the Amazon, obviously it sounds relevant. What I would actually highlight here for you, Bruno, is that we have another piece of work on the way at the WEF, which is called Biodiversities. It's supported by the Van Humboldt Institute in Colombia, and it's about one part of it is helping to come up with a framework for how do we design and measure what a biodiversity actually is. Another part of this will also be that we run an innovation challenge for biodiversities. This one will most likely go live in September. So I would actually encourage you maybe to focus on that one, because I think it's more relevant to your work. And of course, you can, there's no harm in already taking a look at the Amazon challenge, and maybe you upload your solution, then it's already done. But I would definitely keep an eye on the biodiversities one.
Great. And Florian, if there's a website or a newsletter that people can join in order to get that announcement, that would be great.
Yes, there is the uplink newsletter. So I just put that in here again.
Okay, great.
And you get like every Friday you get a digest. Yeah.
Great.
And then also if you follow WEF and uplink on Twitter and LinkedIn, every time we launch a challenge, we do a social media campaign with videos and other assets. So that's also an easy way to stay up to date. And you see it's actually quite a lot of those uplink challenges that are being launched almost on a monthly basis.
That sounds great. Okay, Bruno Cato, you're up next.
Yes, thank you, Jonah. Florian, my name is Bruno Cato. I'm a green entrepreneur. I'm a partner of different companies here. I'm from Belém. I live in Belém, in Pará State, in Brazil. And I'd like to understand a little bit more. And I will use my hat of Triagro. Okay, Triagro, it's a company, a private company. And we plant trees, actually. And we already engaged 5 investors 6 years ago to plant 5 hectares of acai. Okay, and today we try innovate with NFTs to fund forests. So the idea is we are already launched 300 NFTs to fund the investment in forests, in agroforest with native species of Amazon. So how this challenge can help Triagro to escalate this kind of business model?
Well, I think it would be great, Bruno, if you can participate. The way we can help you scale is, it's 3 elements in particular, right? One is for every winning cohort member, we produce web assets on their work. A web branded video on the work of Triagro with 500,000 views across social channels gives you visibility globally. Mostly, I would say, actually, mostly globally. I mean, obviously you can share it in your local networks, but I think we also have our gaps in terms of what type of audience we reach. Then access to our events communities, telling your story, raising awareness, and I guess that's the same point. But then it's also about understanding what type of additional investors or impact investors and funders that might be helpful for you, and that we could help, getting help Triagro getting in touch with. Just like in the case that you would be participating and actually being a member of the cohort, those type of services is what we can offer. It's not, obviously, it's like it's, again, this is also not a panacea, right? And we are not there's not a $5 million on the table or something. It's more like that network community and also communications support that we can give. And I will say, I mean, and as an example, right? I mean, and that goes to the point before about us also making use of the network. So, like, for example, right, we hear of JP Morgan running basically looking for some of the great natural capital startups out there. They know that we do that type of work. They ask us, hey, do you have some good people in your pipeline? And then, of course, we share the profiles of the innovators that we have surfaced because we want them to succeed. And so some of them have just like received $500,000 or $250,000, and it helps them. So that's a little bit how it works as well. So it's really also like how we make use of the network and understand the needs of the people in our community. And then there are, of course, limits to that. I mean, we are not a huge team, but I think we are mission oriented and we want to help.
Great. Bruno, was that?
Thank you.
Okay, great. So we just have a couple minutes left. I want to mention something. In the process of convening the summit, I found about 10, maybe more, consultants who specialize in developing investment-ready projects in the Amazon region, right? They move from one startup to another. They help people prepare financials, etc. I know that in order to qualify for the challenge, you need to have a pilot project that is already on its feet. Its idea phase is not enough. But there are a lot of pilot projects that are already on their feet, but don't know how to do the financials. And so I think there's a big opportunity to use the network that's on this call and then the wider network that's on the mailing list of the Amazon Investor Coalition to put together an advisory team of pro bono consultants that can help smaller level indigenous communities package their projects as investable opportunities for either grants or investor money at various ranges of risk appetite. So I think it's my homework to put together an email to blast out to everybody saying who wants to be a consultant and who needs a consultant, and then we can prepare things perhaps for this challenge, but also for other opportunities. So that's one takeaway I have from this call. Are there other people who would like to chime in the few minutes that we have left about last minute things, questions to the group, announcements? Feel free to come off mic.
Was Bruno going to speak? Because I know he's got some innovative ideas, and or if Philip would love to come and join in, and if Nayara is there, we have others that could translate from Portuguese as well. Thank you.
I see Philip, go ahead.
Hi everybody. Thank you very much for the presentation. Thank you, Florian. Thank you, Jonah, for bringing everything together. Nayara is not with me today, but I would have two questions. The first one is, how do you avoid monoculture? So how do you really ensure that the biodiversity is supported? And we don't just go there and plant trees and then have some unwanted consequences, which we don't know yet. And the second question would be, coming back to what Jonah was saying, linking capital with indigenous people will solve one issue, but you will open other issues because indigenous people and communities often are not prepared on their cultural space, and they don't have any meaning what money means or what money can do. So there need to really be a cultural process that supports not only the technical and the infrastructure of getting investments to indigenous people, but really like where a collaboration is happening and a mutual learning process is happening. So how can we really support this process?
Great. I just want to mention that we're 2 minutes from the turn of the hour. Most people have to leave the call. I'll be able to stay on. The room will stay open. So everyone's invited to stay. Brad, I would like to call on you right before the time hits to introduce yourself and to ask your question or comment.
Thank you. Good day, everybody. My name is Brad Smith. I'm representing the One Small Planet Foundation, and I don't have any questions at this time. I just want to introduce myself and let you know I look forward to attending these calls. We work with a number of partners, nonprofit, grassroots, as well as for-profit and larger projects, largely focusing on decarbonization, carbon markets, and indigenous support. Some of those projects are in Brazil, Peru, Ecuador. So just want to introduce myself and say thank you to everybody for your energy and effort as we continue to turn the tide here.
Great, thanks so much. Anyone else?
Hi.
Go for it.
My name is Amanda. I'm from Tucum, Brazil. Tucum is a brand that works with more than 72 indigenous community in Amazon. And I answer a little bit of Philip's last question. We've been doing this work for 10 years. Indigenous community in Brazil are really prepared to deal with money, but they don't know how, they don't have like the technology on their hands now. And also we've been developing a social technology with them. And we have the first marketplace platform that sells indigenous art in Brazil. And in our mission and our goal here is trying to raise some money to give those communities access to this platform and the technology so they can access the market directly. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks so much for joining us. I see lots of collaboration opportunities. So we're at the top of the hour. This is what I call water cooler time, where class is dismissed, most people leave, but anyone's welcome to stay around, and the chat room's going to stay open, so you will have time to copy it down. Thank you so much, Florian, for joining us. I don't know if you're able to stay on for a little longer. I have a feeling people have unstructured questions.
Thank you, Jonah. Thank you, everybody. I would love to answer Philip's question, and then because it's a little bit late and I have actually surgery early tomorrow morning, if it's okay, I will drop off the call after this. So yeah, Philip, we set criteria for the challenge, including like ecological criteria. So of course, we will ask people if they are about growing trees, how this will look like, and it's not about monoculture plantations at all. So we look at that, and if this is the case, then I guess this will get not a very good rating. But it's also like one among other criteria, and they're all weighted equally. Yeah, and I think the other question is really, I guess in a nutshell, I think it's about the responsibility of those who invest to make sure that the money is also being deployed in a way that is respectful to local cultures and not detrimental to it. And how can we support a more broader shift towards that type of thinking just becoming the norm for everybody who has the ability to invest? So if it's okay for me to wish you all a great rest of the day, and thank you for your super questions and for your time and your interest. Really, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for joining us, Florian.
Thank you so much, Florian. There was one more question. If it's 8 countries, can models be taken from like Panama, the reforestation model that has been already financed by a group of funders out of Norway, out of, for example, Switzerland? Can a model like that be then replicated into another country?
I mean, in principle, yes. And I think we are again like interested in facilitating some of that to the extent possible, and actually even also like beyond the Amazon. And we are running a challenge I've mentioned on the Sahel, very, very different, but still like, there are some skill sets that might be helpful also for people working in other biomes and ecosystems in the world. So, but the replicability of a model, I think, yes, and I think that's what we would like to support by using our platform effectively.
Well, thank you, Florian. I guess in the spec of the application, it was just a challenge to know who and from which point and which country you would like the applications, or is it July 13th, the actual date? Or so help us. I'm trying to curate for you, with you, along with you, some great projects with Jonah and others as well. And so it's really sort of specific on those little application questions.
Yes, and maybe maybe let's have a separate conversation on that, because I think we could take us a little bit more time. So I think I shared my email with you, Fiona, directly. Why don't we set up a specific call on that?
Yeah, just here to help, facilitate where we can and get you and the collective group some of the most fascinating people's projects. And many of them are, hidden behind, construction in the back of the Amazon right now in the middle of COVID. So they're not maybe going to make the July 13th application, and they really are needing this support from you. So I really want to thank you for that initiative.
Thank you, Fiona. Yes, and so yeah, let's have that conversation on the mid-July deadline. I think that it's also because we have like that logic that comes afterwards, but we do see an opportunity to keep this also as an open challenge, and maybe we can tweak it a little bit, but that basically the window stays open. And then because we build that community and network around it, so the cohort program might be tied to a time-bound submission period, but there's something in addition, right, that I think we can all co-create. Okay, great. Thank you all. Yeah. Bye.
Bye. Thanks so much. Anybody else have any other questions?
Perhaps maybe just for a moment, Philippe, you could express a little bit about the work of Nayara and how it's potent, and so that maybe you have a moment to share with Jonah a little about the community, and others might be fascinated to learn more.
If there's space for that, yes, I'm very willing to. Nayara, my wife, is from the Yepa Marasa nation, which in her community they have indigenous land about the size of Ecuador. And 2 years ago, I was able to visit with an expedition that was led and coordinated by indigenous leaders. So they gathered a group of people that were traveling with them in order to understand the threats, the opportunities. We made a SWOT analysis together with the communities there, so it was in a bit participatory way, where we also looked at the challenges they are meeting. So we work with indigenous communities in order to collaborate with the Western world to really open them and are able to get access to technology and infrastructure that the modern world is really offering, and is enabling an improvement of their lives while not losing their traditional culture and the traditional knowledge. What we are seeing is when there is internet coming into the communities, when there is money coming into the communities, there are also other things coming in, like alcoholism. There are also other things coming in, like prostitution. So things that are really, we don't want to share with indigenous communities, but it's really, really difficult because in some ways they're not prepared to the economic pressure that we are bringing. So we want to understand what is it that we find a current level or a common level to share with each other, to bond with each other, to build really a trustful relationship in between, because it's not the money that is missing. It is us to listen and say, hey, what we have been doing for the last 200, 300, 400 years is a genocide. What we created was like we destroyed their ecosystem, their environment. We are really like pressuring them in doing acts that they naturally would not do. So understand that there needs a healing process that needs to go on. And I know that saying that in a investor community, it's not easy, because healing as such, we need to take responsibility. And it means also like not going there now with no, we have a lot of opportunities and we know we want to help and we can help, but it is really like sitting together and listening, sitting together and really sharing how do we want to build a different world. So we're also inviting people to join us. We want to make some more expeditions which are led and coordinated by indigenous themselves. So it's really, really important, and it is a different approach and a different invitation if you go there and meet indigenous by your own wish, or if you're really invited. And this is something that we want to honor. We really want to honor that there are trustful relationships built up, because I also believe that indigenous have the knowledge, have the solutions, and we have to work together. We really have to come together and work together in order to work towards the climate changes.
I see an obstacle for both investors and philanthropists. Working with indigenous communities is a learned process. There have been a lot of attempts, and with some success and a lot of failure. And I have done research online about this quest, how to work with indigenous communities as a philanthropist, as an investor. And there's not much available. There's not much guidance. And so I think that some has been written. So I think that gathering some of the information that has been written on both sides and coming up with something that we can publish to a larger audience for how I think can be helpful to bringing more money, philanthropic investment and otherwise.
Jonah, I think what would be good would not be just something written, and maybe it's not important. The first step to spread news from a huge audience. I would suggest a study group, really, where we bring together people that are able to listen right now and to share experiences. Those you will not find a lot of things out there in the internet. I know I have friends that are working with Ailton Krenaki, who is an advisor for them, bringing in family funds, advising family funds. We are also working with a family that is really wanting to invest in indigenous communities, and it's not easy. It is exactly, and I understand when if Amanda says, hey, they want to, of course they want to participate, of course they want to need money, but what does it mean? It means that normally in an indigenous structure, the man is receiving the money, is going to the city, receiving the money, and stays there really kind of very vulnerable, getting in touch with alcoholism, having a lot of money, and then going back to the community with less money sometimes, and really like with more problems. So there is a lot of social aspect that you will not find things written in the internet, because first of all, there are few people that really take this journey, and this means that you don't go there and offer money. You make your personal journey. You really you start connecting with people that you trust, and you really, there needs to be a very deep ethics, and it's really hard to find people that are really showing this ethics, because it needs time and patience, and it's not based on the indicators that we have for investment normally. It's really going in it. It has a completely different mindset. It has a completely different way of looking at this. It's a completely different perspective. If you go to Amazon, you meet people that see trees and plants as their relatives, as our relatives. They see us as part of the whole natural system. What we as white men never do. We come in as the creators, as we have solutions, we have technology, we create technology. We are arrogant in really listening and seeing other beings acting and working towards a change, towards transformation. We are acting in a very one-dimensional way. Using money is not only a one-dimensional way in the way of focusing on economic development. It is just on the third dimension of not including emotional and spiritual and energetic dimensions that are around, and that science is proving more and more what indigenous have been knowing for many years. So what we have to know or to do is to sit together and share with people that are interested and that are able to listen. If we come here and just shoot solutions that we have been showing in the Western world, and that were successful, very successful in the Western world, and we want to apply the same. My daughter's coming too. No, you're okay. So we cannot replicate those solutions in this cultural context. what is happening is we have to really learn together. We have to be open to bring our experience, to bring our technology, and knowing that we don't know where we are going. So I like the challenge of the 1 trillion trees, but we have to be aware that it's a very Western approach and very limited in we bring economic force and this will save the world. It will not save the world. We need spiritual guidance, deep spiritual guidance. We need to heal ourselves. We have to disconnect from our efforts of wanting to consume and consume and consume. But it is very easy to invest and then go back to our dinner parties and really like consume the next technology that is coming out from the Amazon. And we are talking from big numbers. They're really huge numbers. There's not small. A family office will be capable to beat in this fight, or to really like avoid this fight. We are talking about nations really wanting to get resources that we have to be very clever, and without really having this alliance with indigenous and non-indigenous that understand how to work together, it will be very difficult.
Well said. So I sense a deeper opportunity, which is about learning and exploration and approach. And we're in touch through email. We'll mature that. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now, and we can